And welcome back to our first segment of the morning show today. And as we had mentioned prior to the commercial break, we're going to be having a candid discussion this morning with representatives of the Attorney General's ministry. And we have the Attorney General himself, Mr. Michael Peyreitte, and of course the Solicitor General, Nigel. We're going to be discussing this morning what has been happening within the judicial system in terms of the backlog and the outstanding judgments and what have you. That being said, good morning, gentlemen, and welcome to the show today.
Good morning. It's always good to be back.
Nice.
Well, we appreciate you taking the opportunity to come in to have what we're saying is an extended conversation. We know you've given an official response and essentially you're saying, let's see what is going to happen. The Chief Justice has responded. But I want to start off looking at the overall issue of the backlog that exists within the judiciary system. And this specific case with the Chief Justice is one area, but we've been speaking about it for quite some time with the level of time people are detained and several other issues. Let me ask your perspective as Attorney General. What do you think are some of the underlying issues why we continuously face this problem?
The problem is multifaceted. And I believe, and Mr. Hawk can correct me if I'm wrong, except you have this situation with the Chief Justice in the delaying of the writing of the judgments, but for the most part, the delay is more on the criminal side, more so than the civil side. Why? Because the attorneys drive the process on the civil side for the most part. You have a filing, a defense, case management, pre-trial review, and then the actual trial. So there's only one aspect of it that the system is expected to perform, and that's when it comes to the hearing of the matter and the decision. And for the most part, in civil matters, we don't have that issue. The criminal issue is a separate animal all by itself because many people are involved in the process, especially the public. You have a murder in the middle of Albert Street, and it's a sensational murder. The public wants somebody arrested. Whether it's the right person, whether it's the wrong person, whether it's anybody, you want somebody arrested. What that does is you detain an individual, then there's a new rule that the magistrate has to wait 6 months before dismissing any murder case for which the evidence doesn't come right away at the preliminary inquiry. I believe that in many instances, the magistrates are not brave enough to dismiss matters for which there is no evidence. The magistracy plays such an important part of the criminal procedure in a trial. The magistrate is actually the filter. In the US, you would have like a grand jury situation. In Belize, we have the magistrate. They charge you with murder. The matter comes before me. I look at the evidence. I have the authority to say, this doesn't even warrant it ever going to the Supreme Court. I'll dismiss it. There's no evidence against yourself. Magistrates are afraid to do that because they're afraid of the public backlash. So then what they do, sometimes, not every time, but sometimes, they pass the buck. When they pass the buck, and I'll give you an instance, I was in a matter where this person was charged for murder. There was no evidence, but it was a sensational murder. I got up, made submission, said there's no evidence. The policeman said, I won't even waste the court's time. There's no evidence. And the magistrate still committed the matter to the Supreme Court, where you have to catch a line. Now, what creates that line? Couple people. Sometimes the defendant himself or herself. Sometimes the lawyers for that defendant. Sometimes it's the prosecution, and sometimes it's the court. And indeed, how do you speed up for which you have a person's liberty at stake? The family of the victim, they're in the courtroom. You have to take your time when you're doing a case. And it's the reverse. It takes time to get to a civil matter, and then the decision is made very quickly. In a Supreme Court criminal matter, the trial is usually concluded within a week or even 2, sometimes 3 at the most, and then you have a decision right away, meaning the jury would either convict or acquit, or in this case, though, with murder the judge. So then why you have, to me, the backlog in the murder case, you have two levels. You have to have the magistracy level first. When that is completed, then you have the Supreme Court level and all these other factors that come into play that aids in the delay of matters in the criminal division of the Supreme Court.
I hear your point in terms of what seems to be an inefficiency in the magistrate court that is leading to an overwhelmed Supreme Court system. However, I believe the issue at hand is talking more about delivering of judgments, and that is a separate entity that we're speaking about. And when I ask about underlying issues, I think it is important for us to understand what is the delay in knowing what someone's fate will be.
Well, there's no delay in the criminal division of the Supreme Court. There's absolutely no delay. You go to a trial today, for most cases lasts less than a week. You know, if you go to court, for example, even in the Supreme Court with a judge and jury, for serious matters, sometimes even murder, and that case starts on Monday, you can almost bet that by next Monday you'll have a decision. Absolutely, because then when the judge directs the jury to go in, it's usually a direction given in the morning, and by the evening the jury decides if it's guilty or not guilty. I can't remember there ever being a case where the jury came back and needed to deliberate overnight or anything like that. So there's no delay once it reached the trial stage. For the criminal matters, it's all those issues that I outlined earlier that lead up to the actual trial itself. When it comes to civil matters, it is usually the only delay you would have is when you would have the case and then the delivery of the judgment. Other than that, it's the attorneys who drive that process, and the arbitration aspect of the Supreme Court now, and the judge will encourage you to go into some mediation or some, it prolongs the process as well. So indeed with this issue with the Chief Justice, it seems as if though they're bringing this whole concept of delay back into the forefront, but it's not as bad as the public would want it to be, because it's just simply not the case.
When I look at this issue in its entirety and looking at it from multiple perspectives, one of the first things that grabs my attention is the fact that a crime has been committed. Someone has been arrested and charged for that crime. Let's say in this case it's a crime of murder. There seems to be a lengthy remand period, right? Someone remains on pretrial detention for 3 to 4 years before the matter gets called up. As you said, it's basically catching a line. So the person is incarcerated, so to speak, for 3 to 4 years before the matter comes up before the Supreme Court. The person is found not guilty at the end of this lengthy process. This individual has spent 3 or 4 years of his life awaiting this process to conclude to determine his fate. One, you can't get back that time. I mean, you put back into society basically naked, so to speak. You lost your job. If you're in a relationship, you have to try to repair that if you haven't moved on past that at the point when you're taken in, and all of this stuff. And as I've mentioned to you before, and this is an adage that has been repeated time immemorial, that justice delayed is justice denied. What could we do to be able to not necessarily expedite the process, because we don't want a situation where we're rushing through something and it's not done thoroughly, but to be able to move it along in a manner that is not as drawn out or as protracted?
Well, first of all, and I'm not trying to use the old, well, everybody in the class failed the exam, so mother, please don't spank me because I failed. But first of all, the situation is not unique to Belize. Even in the great United States, I've been involved in federal trials where it took 2-3 years to come to trial. So it's not a unique situation based on the amount of cases that you have. I believe that a lot of it happens right at the magistrate's court, as I said before. Many times these cases get delayed because some magistrates, and sometimes the same magistrates, fail to dismiss matters for which there is no evidence because the public doesn't want to hear it. The public would believe. I've spoken to magistrates and they have said, listen, there's a human aspect to this thing as well. I dismiss this matter and there's a public outcry, the police will rearrest the person, you go through the process all over again. I dismiss the matter. There's a public outcry saying that I was paid or something untoward happened while I released this person. The public needs to be better educated, and I guess that's part of our job, my job, as to the procedure you have to follow when you're dealing with a legal matter. It's not like you're buying a pound of rice. You don't go into the shop, you give your money, you get your rice, and you go home. It doesn't work like that. There is a procedure that has to take place. And historically, what we have done is given the Crown time to say, listen, you need to gather your evidence and bring it before this magistrate. What I would like to see more is for the magistrates after that 6-month period to not be afraid to dismiss matters for which there is no evidence, which means then for a maximum of 6 months, that person could be in prison waiting for a trial to occur. And then, no problem. I would like to see people more, if they believe that they have been maliciously prosecuted and have lost that time, to sue more, so we can bring light on the police department and wherever the blame needs to be put, so that people, there will a message out there will be put that you cannot just falsely imprison people like that. But like I said, it's multifaceted sometimes, and you have to put it this way. Not all people who are accused are innocent. Many times you would have the magistrate is ready to proceed, the Crown is ready to proceed, and then all of a sudden the defendant says, well, I'm getting a new lawyer, so I need more time. And then you have all these cases listed for trial for the next 6 months, so now you have to put that person beyond that 6 months. They change lawyers 3-4 times. And then what they're doing as well, people who are accused of murder, they're purposely not getting attorneys because they know the state will provide one for them. So they sit back and they wait till a lawyer is available to try their case. All of these things cause the huge delay in the system. But for us, from the government standpoint, I would like to see the magistrates and the judges and the DPP and the police do not make arrests and proceed to trials based on the tone of the people and what the people want. I mean, for example, you have this live situation with Bert Vasquez, or even in San Pedro. The public is not to determine who gets arrested, who gets charged. So you have the public outside of the police station waving placards saying arrest that person, and then what if the police decide, you know what, there is no evidence? What if the magistrate decides there is no evidence? What is the public going to do? Charge the courtroom? I mean, so we all have our part to play in the legal system.
I hear your point, and I think you are very clear in pointing out where there are different levels of challenges in the system. But I do want to say this. Let's use the example of one of the very prominent cases right now, the Doams from San Pedro.
Yes.
They haven't been charged for murder. The people have demanded it, and the police and the DPP have said there's not enough evidence at this point, and the investigation is ongoing. So I think it speaks to your point that it isn't always that the public is the one fueling who is arrested.
But it should be that way every time. It's
but
not
I
always
also, I want to go back to the issue of the magistrate, and perhaps you can just provide clarity on it. Ultimately, their responsibility is not to the public. They are legal professionals. They're a part of the judiciary, and they are to follow the letter of the law.
They're also human beings.
I know, I understand that. All judges
and
are.
Small.
All judges are, but it is, you are the Attorney General, you're a human being, but you have your terms of reference. You know what your roles and responsibilities are, and you will execute them accordingly. So my question to you is, as the Attorney General, to say that you feel that the magistrates are conceding more to the public's interest versus fulfilling their mandate, then that is a very clear problem that needs to be addressed. But these are appointed professionals. So what will be done?
It is being addressed. And because you're talking about backlog now from 4 or 5 years ago, when I wasn't on the scene, my style is different. I feel there's a problem at Vital Stats, I go to Vital Stats. There's a problem at the company's registry at Belize, I go there and I hear, what is the problem? We try to fix it. There's a problem with certain matters being just passed to the Supreme Court for trial, paper committers without consideration of. I go to the magistrate school and I say, listen to me, what is the issue? You can't, if there's evidence, pass it on to the Supreme Court. If there's no evidence, I don't care what the backlash is, I don't know what outcry is. If there's no evidence, dismiss the matter. So something is being done with it. But I think, just to answer the question that Isani had earlier, that is why you've had so many backlog of cases so far. Some matters lay in the magistrate's court for murder for over a year, some even 2 years. Why? Because the magistrate doesn't want to dismiss the matter because of public outcry. And I think that the public needs to play a role. Belize is only so small.
But shouldn't we then look to have magistrates who would, and I don't want to say that the magistrates don't do that, but you are saying that these persons are ill-equipped to handle the professional role that they're appointed.
I'm not saying that they are. I'm saying we all have a role to play. Let me tell you something. The media has a role to play as well, because you in the media are interested in a case 2 times. When there's a perp walk from the police station to the court, and when there's a verdict guilty or not. In between, I've never seen the media, I've never seen a reporter sit in a courtroom for the entire trial. At the end of every trial, people from Channel 5, Channel 7, Low FM come up to me, so how old was the victim again? So how old is the person who was found guilty? Well, weren't you in court? Because all we're interested in are the sensational aspects of everything. And I think we need, as a country, to get more as well into the educational aspect of the system, to have people learn and accept what it takes. Because many people complain about it. When they go through the court system, they realize, but I was surprised it went so fast, given what all you have to do. All I'm saying is that we all have a role to play. But the first line of defense is the magistracy, because they are the filters. They determine what goes beyond the initial stages of a case.
Let's bring a surgeon in for a perspective on this conversation as well.
I agree with the Honorable Attorney General in terms of the aspect of it's multifaceted. Look, we don't have a perfect system. Other jurisdictions in the region face some similar issues. What we need to do is think about our judicial system, the administration of justice, and think about a paradigm shift. For example, I'll give you an example. Judiciaries have gone the way now of having a protocol and media relations officer. That person filters transmit to the public whatever is happening within the judiciary. That is something probably we need to consider and adopt here. In relation to the magistracy, I would defend the magistrates, and I say they're trained people, but remember, we moved from a system where we had a lot of lay magistrates, persons who are not properly qualified. We've gotten qualified people in there now, but that is not the best alternative. The best alternative is perhaps to have attorneys who would have served probably 3-4 years at the bar already and come on with some level of experience. We're going to get there. But my point is this. We all have a role to play. If you are, as a lawyer, you think you can come and serve and give something to the public, come on the bench, even on a temporary basis. These are the things we need to look at because, as you said, and I would agree, experience, you can't beat experience in the system. So if you have a lawyer who's out 1 year as opposed to a lawyer out 6 years, they can bring something greater to the table. That is just one example. In our system, we also need to think about expanding the role of legal aid and probably creating a greater system called a public defender system. A lot of delays in the system has to do with persons who can't afford attorneys and who are unrepresented. So it's a multifaceted approach, and we have problems, but we're working towards getting there.
Well, you know, and I don't want to be very clear. I think it is recognized that there are challenges in the system throughout. And I also want to touch on another point, while it doesn't have to do with the magistrates and the judges. We actually had a hand-delivered note. This is how important it is to the show this morning. Speaking about challenges with the general legal counsel, because while some people can't afford attorneys, some people are paying a lot for attorneys who are not doing the work for them, and even that process in itself is slow. You know, you're talking about two things. You're talking about delaying judgments, then you talk about persons who feel they weren't represented well, and if you consider somebody who is fighting for whatever it is, you know, this is years and years of challenge and resources that have been milked from them. So let's talk about where some of the strengthening can take place. As the head, as the Attorney General, you know, I think it is a wonderful time to be able to recognize where our flaws are, but we have to identify solutions.
You know, we're like the Marines in the United States. We're looking for a few good women and men. Where are the Belizean senior attorneys who have made their money, who have established themselves? Where are they in their contribution to the public service? Where are they? Nigel mentioned something very, very, very key, and I've never been shy about this. If you have indeed senior attorneys, experienced attorneys sitting on the bench, that increases the chances exponentially of them not being intimidated by the public or by whatever in making their decisions. Where are these people? Nobody. All we have, the only people I find who are willing to work for the government, whichever government is in power, are young people who are looking to grow themselves, and you can't blame them for that. But where are the people who benefit from the system? Where are the lawyers? Point to me. Point to me. I've reached out to lawyers, senior attorneys, attorneys from both sides of the aisle. PUP and UDP attorneys. Serve and as a magistrate, no? Serve and they're not interested. Because what we need are people who are interested in bringing the system along.
It's seemingly exploitative that one would come into the system and be able to take away from the system and not consider contributing meaningfully on the other side or the other end of that system.
I put them on notice, and they're my colleagues. But when I came in, I gave an opening speech for the and I said, where are these people? 2 attorneys have contacted me, 2, about ideas or whatever, 2, only recently because of the situation with the Chief Justice. So that is another aspect of it. What we need are seasoned attorneys who are prepared to help us in the process. That's the number one thing that we have. And we need more judges, which we're trying to do.
Is it safe to say that the problem that you're facing in terms of trying to get these attorneys on board is the fact that they're driven by the money?
Naturally, man.
As opposed to saying, you know what, we're really doing something that is worthwhile for society.
I'm proud of Justice Barrow. But stay here and be a judge of the Court of Appeal. I'm proud of Godfrey Smith. But if you can be a judge outside, be a judge here, man. I'm proud of Eamon Courtney. But if you can be a judge out there for a week, be a judge here for a half a year or something. Well, all of these different people, it's all our fault.
Maybe it's a philosophy that nothing Belizean is good enough, and that you look for the distinction outside of Belize. That's another argument.
I mentioned 3 Belizeans, your own country not good enough. I would love to see certain people sit on the bench, on the mat, to help with the process, to add some. So when you hear that, oh, a decision was made by, for example, Chief Magistrate Courtney or Supreme Court Justice Courtney, then you know that that was a sound decision because that's a good lawyer. But we don't have confidence because our very own people don't want to be a part of the system sometimes. We're all to be blamed for it.
Has it not been a part of the system, whether formally or informally, that most of the judges are from outside of Belize because we're such a small society and people are worried of influence?
Well, you see, I don't see it like that. I see it that most of the times we don't want, because we believe it's less lucrative. It's less lucrative in my view. And I think that we have to step away from that. At some point, we have to own it. At some point, we have to own it. Listen, you've been practicing for 25 years. There's no doubt you have made your money and you're accomplished. Serve the public, man. Serve the public for 5 years. You're now 55 going on 60. All that knowledge, all that experience. When you sit in that courtroom as a magistrate or a judge, you command respect. And so I think, well, that's just another issue that I have with why there are delays and stuff. But it's multifaceted on every end. The lawyers, the defendants, we're all to be blamed for it. And I think we all need to chip in to try and solve it.
Okay, so let's talk tangible solutions.
Yes.
You spoke of getting more judges on board.
Yes,
Where are we in that process?
There are 2 of them are supposed to come on.
Selected shortly.
Okay.
There are 2 judges who are supposed to come on shortly on a temporary basis on the criminal side. Then there's another judge who's going to come on the criminal side on a permanent basis, who's going to replace, I believe, the Honorable Justice Gonzalez, who's since retired. That again is on the criminal side. And like I said, there are different things that we're doing. We're trying right now to expand legally, but we could only do so much with our resources. And I'm saying it requires, and I believe, in my view, my humble and respectful view, I think there are lawyers who want to serve. I think what we need is to sit around a table, and that's what we plan to do. We need to come up with a comprehensive plan, a plan for the administration of justice, the system, because the old way doesn't work anymore. There are new ways of doing things in our system, and that is the approach we intend to take, and that is the approach we have taken. Me personally, I've asked persons here if they want to come on and serve. Right now we're looking for a Deputy Solicitor General for litigation. I've asked people, come on and serve, come and help, right? I'll wait to see whether they will be responsive, because I speak with lawyers. I think there are people out there who want to serve, but I think we need to sit. You might not be able to serve in one particular area. Your forte might be another area. So it requires really a sitting down with bar, us, to make sure, judiciary, make sure we get the best fit for our system. Be that as it may, we have to realize also the judiciary has made significant strides. And we have to realize that the Chief Justice has put in place several reforms in order to better the system. Criminal procedure rules, you have now mediation, arbitration. Now they're soon coming on board the whole issue with links in terms of having to have not prisoners travel, but they could have their adjournments done right at the prison. So we're moving, but I know we're not quite there, and we're trying to put things in place. But it requires all of us. Like the AG said, I would love to see members of the media sitting in court and hearing matters, because oftentimes,
we'd love to have beat reporters who could stay there the
court
whole day.
reporters.
We don't have that many.
And
so
we understand. We understand.
I think it's understand.
It's a comprehensive approach.
And that's what I'm saying. And the point is, I think if we want to look solutions at the solutions, and you speak about getting more judges, and you want more of the legal professionals in this country to be engaged with the government service of it. Can we go back to legal aid for a second? We still have persons who study law and scholarships, don't we?
Yes.
Okay. Are they required to serve at legal aid when they return?
There's not a requirement per se, because it has to do with allocation of resources, because sometimes you might have 5 students who went out to study, but when they come back, we have need for them at the Surgeon's office or at another ministry. So our focus has been to strengthen. We've strengthened. I think legal aid now is in Orange Walk, we're in Belmapan, we're in Belize City. We have an arrangement with an office in Dangriga. Just last week we were discussing the issue of Punta Gorda, because I met a lady and she said she had to travel all the way from PG to Belize City to get legal aid, and she was saying to me, Mr. Hawk, is really a pressure on me financially. I have to get a bus, and when I calculate it, it's really putting a financial pressure on me. So we know the services are needed, so we need to get out to PG, probably Cayo, and those areas.
Just to clarify though, persons who return on scholarship are required to work for government.
They are required.
Well, first of all, people don't get scholarships for law. It's a policy.
Well, that was the first question I asked.
Right. It's on the basis that they do. No, they don't. Okay. They just get the regular, if they're lucky, economic costs like everybody else does get. Because we found that problem indeed in this government, that people would come back and not want to serve. I believe indeed if you get a scholarship to serve, then to get your studies done, then you should work that 5 years off that you that you got the benefit of. But we stopped that because people came back and did not want to work for the public service. You cannot be drawing the benefit of the public and then not want to serve the public. So that was discontinued.
A point I wanted to make, just for the record, I know you raised the issue of discipline of lawyers. I just wanted to say that there is a functioning General Legal Council. I sit on that council and we are working. We have hearings probably on a weekly basis. The problem here again, as I said, and it's something we need to look at, is how do we filter information to the public? Because to me there's a disconnect. A lot of times people don't know what's going on because information is not filtered.
I was going to ask you, how do you feel that the General Legal Council is utilized sufficiently?
I think so. Okay. Persons are lodging complaints on a weekly basis. Those complaints are heard. The committee will meet to see if they have merit. If it has merit, cases are heard. Just last week we did 2 cases, right? So the committee has been meeting, but I think what is happening to us now, and we need to make a paradigm shift. That's why I indicated to AG, perhaps we need to look now at going the way of the other judiciaries, where you have probably a media and protocol officer who can say to the public, you know, they had 12 hearings held over the space of 12 months. So you're not in the dark until we come and tell you these things. So the information flow is there.
You don't have to have a gotcha moment to lead off the news with, for there to be proof that something is happening. I mean, you may think that nothing is happening in GLC because nobody has been hung out to dry recently in the media. Maybe when these people have complaints against each other, they go before the GLC. The GLC always gives them an opportunity to go to the side and see if they can work out their differences. And many times people do. So then, not because you don't hear about problems being solved means that problems are not being solved. So indeed, again, you know, but then again too, sometimes both sides don't want the public to know of that private matter that they have. It's not always the attorneys. Sometimes it's the members of the public too. They don't want the publicity. They just want their issue dealt with.
So, where do we go from here? I want to be very clear about this, because when we think about the judicial system, it is for the protection of our rights. It's for us to feel secure that the rights and liberties that we have can be guaranteed and can be respected. And when you encounter different challenges along the way, and we hear the resource issues, we hear that the problem is multifaceted, we can't just say, okay, well, the system is not working and that means I won't be protected.
Well, it's an interesting question that you're asking at an interesting time. Tomorrow, I think, or is it today, Nigel, that we have the final day of court. So the Supreme Court goes into holiday until the 19th of September. It's a long vacation, they call it. Well, the Magistrates Court does not have a vacation. Poor magistrate that work 24/7, it seems like. But we have time now. Myself and the Solicitor General, who is the CEO as well of the ministry, along with our senior staff and all members of staff actually, to sit down over the summer to put in place what we need to put in place to improve the system. We want to ensure that a new Court of Appeal judge is installed. We have to get those two judges temporarily to come in and clear up at least significantly that backlog. We need to get that permanent judge to replace Justice Gonzalez in place. We need, I think, on the horizon is the retirement of the current Chief Magistrate. We have to look into getting her replaced. And then as well, we need to look administratively at all the other things that we have to do for Vital Stats, for Companies Registry, for Peyreitte, for all the Maya Land Rights Commission. All of those things fall on our ministry. So it's not just the courts. People would think that it's courts, but it's not just that. It's far more than that. But after my 6 months in office, we have to do now what is called our self-assessment as to what we have done so far. I believe that since January, I've been outing a lot of fires, just outing a lot of fires and plugging holes. We have some time now to sit down and properly plan where we want to go from here based on what we have done. And we need a head of litigation. Will any Slim Shady please stand up? We need somebody to come and help us. Nigel cannot be the CEO and the head of litigation. We need help. And so we need these people in place. The administrative officer was telling me in the ministry, we have about 4 or 5 places in terms of lawyers to help push the system that we can't fill because people don't want to work for the public. Can you make the
salary a little more attractive?
And then you want to complain about how people are getting paid. Are you willing to accept a raise in taxes for it? I mean, it comes at a cost. It comes at a cost, and indeed. And the Minister of Finance not like this too much, but we're only like what 1% of the national budget. It's a small amount for us to push an entire system that's in your face every day. So then that's my job to go cap in hand to him come September when we've assessed everything we have done, where we want to go and say, look, this is what we need.
I just want to make a point though, in terms of legal aid, right? Like over the summer, we've seen the system work very well because what we've had is a lot of Belizean students, law students, who came on voluntarily and served without pay and served the legal aid center. We know they couldn't go to court, but the contribution that they made was very significant, right? So using that as an example, we know if we're able to get persons who could come on and serve, a great impact in the system, right? And I think if we plan it out, we can get there. There are problems, but I am very, very optimistic that there are persons out there who are willing to serve, who are willing to help. And if we all work together, I think we can do it.
Okay. Well, we got to close off the conversation.
Oh, really?
Thank you. We're out of time and our other guests are waiting. But we appreciate you coming in to have the conversation. As I pointed out, this is very much about what takes place within the judiciary, but it's the people that are impacted. So they want to understand. Thank you for being here.
Thank you, too.
And we hope you'll update us on your assessment as well.
Absolutely. I remember we're responsible for UNCAC as well.
We can have that conversation too. All right, we're going to have a break now. When we come back, we're going to be talking about women in politics. So stay tuned.